Greetings hobbyists, this is Artisans of Vol, and in this video we're going to be taking an object from, well, nothing, all the way to a laser cut model in Blender. So we're going to need to look at this in two parts. Firstly, the 3D designing element, which we'll talk through now, and then we need to look at how we can turn this into something that's useful for 3D cutting. Now there are loads of programs out there that you could use for a 3D cutting file, so why would I use Blender? This seems like an odd choice. But actually, I really like this as a way of being able to look at something that's going to be in 3D. Don't get me wrong, if I was making something simple, I probably wouldn't do it in 3D. In Blender, I'd use just the standard tools that come with something like, I'm going to be using X tools because I'm using the X tool S1. But for something in 3D, where you've got material with a thickness, I find this really useful. So originally I was going to just make some terrain or something like that, and then I realised, you know what, next to my workbench, I've also got a workbench for doing airbrushing, and it's a mess a lot of the time, with paint strewn all over the place, especially for whatever my latest project is. And I'm currently painting up a load of salamanders using pro acrylics, so I thought, why not make a paint stand? They can just fit into this side bit here. So what we're going to do is start with the paint pot. So let's get rid of this, and I'm going to Shift A, mesh, and bring in a cylinder. Let's up the vertices on that to 256. Now I'm not going to explain every single thing I'm doing because otherwise this is going to take forever. So this is going to be a fairly intermediate tutorial. It's not totally for beginners, though you could easily follow this along and work out what I'm doing as we go. I've then taken this pro acrylic paint pot and measured it, and I've got a diameter of about 30 millimeters. So let's come and put our radius in. And normally I'd do 30, but I want a little bit of leeway to put these paint pots in a gap. So and we're going to be using this to remove a gap from the wood. So I'm going to call this 31 millimeters, and we want a radius, so divided by 2, and then the depth is 40 millimeters. So this is going to be our paint pot. We'll start this setting up the paint, and then we'll go for everything else. So what I'm going to do is just come in here and add an array. Now we could do this using other add-ons like hard ops, but I'll keep this relatively vanilla for now. And we want this going along in the x-axis with a bit of a distance between them. So I'm going to call this, let's say 50 millimeters. So let's turn this off relative onto constant, and let's put that at 50. And I'm going to have 5 paint pots across. So that seems to work pretty well. Now, just to make things easier later, I want these to be central. So I'm actually going to apply this, Shift and S, bring my origin to the geometry, and then Shift and S and bring that to the cursor. So now we've got that centered. I have actually got a video on how we can make a centered array, so that would be a really cool thing to use as well, but I thought let's keep this relatively basic. Then we're going to add this in, and they're going to be in steps. So if you've seen the thumbnail, you know what we're getting at. So let's add another modifier and an array, and we want again on the constant, and we're going to have this going up, let's put that to 0, up say 35 millimeters, and then we want it going back away. So let's just have a look at this on the y-axis. Let's drag it back to somewhere there-ish. And importantly, as well as being stepped, because of where the badge is, right on the front, I want to be able to read what these paint colors are, and because there's a spout, that could be quite annoying. So I'm actually going to offset this on the X as well by half the distance. So we're going to call this 25. And that should probably be okay. So let's turn this to a nice round number. We're going to call this 23. Actually, I think I'm asking for a lot there. Let's go 25 as well, just to keep everything easy to remember. And I think that'll do fine. So now that we've got this, we're fairly happy. We're once again going to apply this. I know I'm going a bit destructive on this, but it should be fine. Let's go into vertex mode, and we'll just come here and L to select that one and delete it because we want to have this relatively even. So let's make another set. We're going to have a total of 4. So add modifier, once again an array, onto constant. Let's put the X as 0, Y as 50, which will be double the 25, and then this for a Z is going to be 70, so again double the 35. So that's going to be our setup for our paints. Okay, let's start making this, and we're going to start at the bottom. So I'm going to Shift A, mesh, and I'm going to bring in a cube. Now I'm going to be using material that's 3 millimeters wide, so I'll start with that 3 millimeters wide, and we're just going to G and Z to somewhere around here. I could have actually worked that out with some maths, but let's just G, B to use snap base, Z, and then bring that up there, and then I'll press S and then X to make that, what, somewhere there? That looks probably about right. And then I want this to be as wide as we need this to be, so I'm actually going to go into vertex mode, grab those vertices, G and then Y, that to have a little bit of extra room at the front, and then I'm just going to guesstimate this to G and then Y, somewhere about there, but we're probably going to have to play with that later. So this is going to be the base of our paint stand. Now, we will add in all the tabs and things that we need to connect this together later. At the moment, I'm just sizing this out, and again, this is why doing this in Blender is so useful, because you've got something where you can see the thickness. Whereas doing this on 2D Builder is a program I've used before, it's quite hard to visualize this, whereas here you get everything right first time. Okay, let's Shift and D to duplicate this. In fact, actually, let's do the back first. So Shift and D, R90, and then I'm just going to G, B, get that, and then we'll go to there. And then go into vertex mode, and then move that up somewhere there-ish. Probably can fiddle around with that later. So we haven't got any overlap here. We will deal with that in a little bit. But thinking about this, I think that the way I'm going to attach this, I probably actually want this to be going into the back and with a little bit of gap at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is select those vertices, G, B, Y, go to there, and then Alt and Q to move on to this one, and I'm just going to G and Z those down. So we've got a little bit of a gap underneath, and it means that we can secure this into the side of this, and we don't necessarily have to glue it, though I probably would glue this together afterwards anyway. Okay, let's deal with all the steps going up, so each platform that we're going to have here. And this is going to work as two things. Each one is going to work as the platform for the level above to sit on, and then it's also going to hold in the level below and have something to slot it into. So we're going to need to make that. It should look quite elegant and use less wood overall. So let's select this, Shift and D, and then Z, and we know that's going to be 35 up. So we know that's perfect. Then I want this front to be, I don't know, G there? Somewhere there, so that when this is cut out, it's got the front bit, but it doesn't obscure the label totally. I think that will look nice. And then we want the back to come somewhere there, let's say. Maybe a bit more. That will do fine. And then let's array this back. So add modifier, array, and then we want, again, a constant offset. A lot of arraying here, very nature of doing something with steps, I guess. So the Y is going back 25, and then the Z is going up 35. So that's our next platform, and we're going to need one more beyond this for the top one as well. Damn, that was a pretty good guess on where that needed to be for the back wall. Should we cut this off a bit? In fact, if we just go into vertex mode, and then G and then Y that forward, we should get something pretty good. And let's just have a look at this a bit more closely. G, Y, and move that to about there. So that's pretty close on perfect. Excellent. So this is looking pretty good. We've got our steps, and we can see where this is going to hold the paint in. So in theory, I could actually lean this forward and the paint wouldn't fall out, which is really nice. Then we're going to need our side parts. Now, what I want is to be able to actually slot these in. So let's deal with that now so it's more visible. I'd have probably actually done this later otherwise. So I'm going to Control and R there, Control and B, and just make it whatever width. I think somewhere about there would be good. Go into face mode, select that face, and I'm just going to E, and I know that this is 3mm thick material, so we want that there. I'm then going to use Mesh Machine to press Alt and X and symmetrize that to the other side. If you don't have Mesh Machine, you can just do that with Mesh, symmetrize, and then fiddle around with the settings. So you can do that without this. And we've got those bits sticking out, which is what we're going to need. Let's deal with this bottom one as well. And we'll just go into Edge mode, and we'll Control and R, scroll up so we've got two of them, escape so that they're relatively centered, and then Control and B to give that some width. Let's go with about there, and again, face mode, select E, and then 3 by hitting 3 on the number pad, or the top numbers, it doesn't matter. And then once again, I'm going to symmetrize that across with Mesh Machine and Alt and X, which makes it very, very quick to do. Right, we're looking pretty good. We've got all our connections, and we just need our side plate. So let's Shift and D for that, R, and then 90, and then let's G, move this over here, and we want this G, B for snap base, and probably about there for now. And we can see how this is going to cut into this and keep everything in place, and why I didn't have this layer here perfectly on the bottom. It means that this isn't going to fall out if I chose to lift this up. Everything's going to be relatively self-supporting. Vertex mode, select the vertices, G, B for snap base, let's Y to snap it to the Y, and we're going to have that perfectly to the front. Great. This is so easy with Blender. Like, all of the snapping makes this really, really quick to do. Now we also need some bits here that are going to go into this backboard. So once again, edge mode, face mode, whatever mode, Control and R, let's do 2 again, 3? Let's do 3, this is quite wide. Control and B, I probably could be paying attention to how big the offset is of these, but I don't think I really need to care. And then let's slash, isolate it, face mode, select there, and then E, and then 3 again, and we're good to go. We've got that. So it's going to come out to the back of this. And we just need to make this connect to the back here. Now, this is the one where, actually, do we want this one going a bit further as well? It will mean that I couldn't put this perfectly up against a wall, but I think for the same reasoning here, it would be better to have this. So let's select this face, and then just G, and then Y, and just bring it back a bit, let's say 3mm, just for consistency, though it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to come into this one, and do exactly the same thing. So edge mode, Control and R, scroll up, 3, Control and B, to about there, face mode, X-ray mode, let's go to those, E3 there, and then Alt and X to bring the same to the other side, and we've got everything sorted. And just for completeness, that is perfectly centered. Let's just click, Alt and X, and we're going to mirror that across to the other side. So that is using hard ops. Again, you can use a standard mirror, it's just a quicker way of making the modifier. Cool. Now, I could keep this like this, with this being totally solid sides here, but it's kind of just a waste of material, and I think it'd be better to be sort of stepped so that we can actually see the paints more from the side as well. So let's get rid of some of this material. So I'm going to bring in a cube. Let's just make this absolutely massive. I might need to change the view. I'm going to a bit far to be able to see this. So let's go to view, and for our clipping, add just an extra 0 on that, and suddenly everything's perfectly fine. We can zoom out and see everything. So quick problem that you might need to deal with there. Right, so let's just move this around and think about where this is going to want to cut out. I definitely want it just going perfectly up to the front of this. So let's G, B, grab there, the snap base, Y, and then snap to that front portion. Am I on the right bit? No, I'm not. G, B, and then Y, and then there. That's where I want it to be. So that's going to cut this out. We can actually do this in real time, so I can control and minus using ball tool to see where this is. And am I happy with that height? So let's just G and then Z that. And again, this is why this is so cool. I'm doing everything in real time, seeing what's happening. You're not going to be able to do that with 2D Builder or any of those other programs that you'd use as standard to do laser cutting. So really enjoying this process. Now, we're going to need to make another one of this. If I array this, it's actually going to cause probably some problems with the Booleans. So let's create the second step, and we could do an array, but this is going to cause problems. So first thing I need to do is sort out this scale. Otherwise, if I shift and D and then go, let's say Z by, I'm going to want to do 35, this works okay. But now that it's been created, let's G and then Y and then 25 minus, you can see it's hardly moved anywhere. It hasn't actually done anything because this scale is so off. So let's just Control and A and apply the scale, and then that means I can then Shift D, Z 35, and then G and then Y and 25, and we've got that there ready to go, and this will be exactly on the same point. So once again, Control and minus, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing, Shift D, Z 35, G, Y, 25 there, and then Control and minus. And we've got this really cool stepping. Let's H to hide that, H to hide that, and H to hide that. And for this, we actually want the mirror happening last. So let's just toggle all of those to be smaller, and we'll just do that last. This is really minor. You basically don't know that that's happened, but it's just better from process point of view. Now we are missing one thing, and that is that we don't have a top line here like we do on this one. So we've got to have something to hold this paint in. I mean, I guess we could not, but I want it to be complete. So let's fix that. Now, the first thing I want to do, or I'm probably going to have to do, is start applying this so I can take a part out of it. Just adding one more to the array means that, well, I guess I could do it this way actually, and then start fiddling around with it. Keeps everything easy and has got everything in place. So actually, yeah, let's go with that. But in case there's something I don't like here and I want to go back to this stage where we've got some bits being non-destructive, it is worth saving it at this point. So let's file and then let's save this as something. Now that we've done this, we're probably going to need to apply that so we can get to the geometry here. So what I'm going to do is actually just select all of this and then P and then separate by selection. Then I can start fiddling around with all the bits that we want to fiddle around with. So we're going to need to make this section, so let's go into here and vertex mode. So we're going to need to make this less wide, so let's just G and Y that to there, G and then Y that to there, I'd guess. I mean, it's not perfectly centered, I'm not sure I care, but we'll make it a little bit better. And then we're going to grab these and then G, B, constrain that to the Y and get that up to there. Cool, and do we want some bits where this is going to go into the back? Probably, so let's isolate this. Control and R, scroll up, 2, 3, escape, edge mode, let's select that edge, and that edge. Control and B, again, I haven't really paid attention to the size of these, which was a bit lazy of me, but I don't really mind. And then E3, and we've got that ready to go. Cool, there we go. So this makes sense. We're going to connect each of these, so this and this, to the back. So ordering this is important. Ooh, what have I done wrong there? Oh, that's why I've connected this to the wrong bit. So let's go to vertex mode. Notice that we did this to the wrong section. So G, B, Y, and then there. And that's fixed that. There we go. So in order, what we're going to do is have this part here and this part here slot into the back. And then from then on, all of the other bits that we've got are going to, let's say, have one side come on here. We'll slot all of these into the side, and then we'll put the last side on. That seems to work from a logical point of view. So we've got everything pretty much good to go. What we need to do is just cut out the holes. Now, normally, if this was for 3D printing, when I start trying to cut out holes, I'd want this face, that face there, to be a bit bigger, because 3D printing has an element of sort of expansion as you do it. But with laser cutting, we don't have that problem. In fact, the laser will actually cut into this a bit and add a little bit, like a fraction of a millimeter, to allow things to slot in more nicely. So we should be okay with this as far as I'm concerned. So let's go with this. First thing we need to do, let's actually get rid of this because we don't care about it. We just know we need 2 of these. They're identical on both sides. Then we need to select this, and we're going to Shift and D to duplicate it, and we're going to select that, and we're going to isolate it. The reason we're doing this is that trying to Boolean this out of this, if I control a minus, oh, it does actually work on exact. So this should be okay. Let's try these, control and minus. Yeah, you can see here, it's a little bit close and it could cause some problems. So what I'm just going to do is go into face mode, face mode of these, and then select that face, and that face, because they are individual objects. And we're just going to G, X, and then just bring them out a little bit more. There we go. So let's select those, control and minus, and then we've got that good to go. Let's H-hide that, and because they're duplicates, when I come back, we've got everything there. Then we need to do the same at the back. So actually what I'm going to do is recall that duplicate. Let's find which one it was. That one there. Select this one, let's isolate it, face mode, and exactly the same thing. So we're going to be doing this a couple of times. There we go, and we're going to need to do the same for the bottom. So let's just Shift and D, duplicate that, isolate it, face mode, select that face, let's just G and then X that a little bit out, and then same thing here, G and then Y. Cool, and then we're going to click, control minus, and then that one, control minus, and then we can H to hide this. From this point, we're pretty much done. We've just got one left to do. So let's come to this one, and then we're going to Shift and D, select there, and then isolate it. It's all the same thing again. Face, there, and there. G and then X, bring that out, and then click, control and minus, and then H to hide that. We're going to need to apply this. Then we can come back into our view and we've got everything cut. And if we really want to just show this off for the final product, we can select there and then just mirror that to the other side. I was using machine tools this time instead of hard ops. So there we go, pretty good to go. We've got our paint station ready for our laser cutting. Ooh, no, maybe we don't. No. Okay, so this is why doing this in 3D is so versatile. I just saw this problem here where you can see that we've got this shelf sticking over where this hole for the paint's going to be. There's probably enough distance here that we could probably get away with that, but let's not risk it. Now, we've got a few ways of dealing with this. If you're happy with add-ons, we could just use box cutter. If I just Alt and W, I could literally go there and then cut through, and it's that quick and easy to do it with box cutter. Let's just undo that, and we won't use box cutter because we haven't so far, and we've done all of this without needing a paid add-on at all, other than where we just sped up mirroring or symmetrizing. So let's just mesh, bring in a cube. Let's S to scale that up, make it really big. Actually, let's go really big. And then let's just G, Z that up so it's on that level. Come and have a look at it from above. X-ray mode, G, and then Y. Let's give it a bit of a gap, and then let's S and then X to scale that up. And then we can click there, Control and minus, and there we go. That is that sorted. And then we just need to do it for the other layers as well. So let's just click on this one. We could do this with an array, but actually I find arrays cause more problems for something like a Boolean than it's worth. So let's just Shift and D. We're going to hit Y and 25 to move it back. G and then Z, and we'll move that up to somewhere around here. And we're ready to do that to this one. So let's Shift click, Control and minus. There we go. That one's now got that done as well. And then same thing, Shift and D, Y25, G, and then Z that up, and then we'll just do the same thing for the final one, Control and minus, and then H and H and H. And now this isn't quite lining up, so we can go to our side. Let's come here, because this is the one that's mirrored. Vertex mode, select those vertices, and then just G, B, select there with snap base, Y, and then snap it to there. I actually think I prefer that like this. Actually, I'm going to leave it there. So I think that's going to look a little bit better. Right, there we go. That is our completed paint station, all modelled and ready for laser cutting. So in the next video, we'll go through that laser cutting process. We're going to set everything up on Blender so we can laser cut these parts, export them in a format that will work, and then we'll take that into Xtools and have a look at the laser cutting process. If you're watching this on YouTube and want to see that now, or you're just looking to support the channel a bit further, then you can always join the Patreon where these videos are up a week early, ad-free, and there are other cool perks as well. Other than that, if you want to help out, a like or a comment would really be appreciated, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day, guys.